Welcome to the Socality Show. We are so excited to have you on today's show. Watching and joining, we've got Anthony Gugliotta joining us all the way from Ontario, an incredible creator, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. He does it all, and he has got so much incredible information in his brain that he's going to download into us today. We're going to talk about everything from his journey, how he got to where he is. And Anthony has done a lot with us in the past, and you have so much knowledge when it comes to all things creative, from creating ideas and then the tech to get it across the line. And so we're so glad to have you on the Socality Show today. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Super glad to be here.
It is awesome to have you. So for people who are joining, I know that people are clicking that link and watching because they're fans. They've been following your journey. But for people who are just discovering you, tell us a little bit about you, where you live, what you do, and yeah, just give us the Anthony story.
Okay. Well, I'll say Toronto. I'm actually just outside of Toronto, but that's what qualifies.
It's easy to say, yeah.
It's so much easier because nobody knows what like Durham region is. It's like don't even bother.
Even when it comes to Canada, they're like, "Oh, you live in Toronto." It's like there's more to Canada than Toronto.
There's more. So I've been here. I grew up here. Photography is something that I've kind of always had in the background ever since I was in high school. Right. I was introduced it. I took I think it was 10th grade. It was like a photojournalist yearbook class, and our job was to like document everything that happened. And part of that was we learned how to use a DSLR. Like I had never shot film before. Right. Never used a camera. I knew what cameras were, and then I was handed this like Nikon.
Yeah, that's okay. You can say it.
I could say it, and we got showed how to use it, and it was like, oh, this is interesting. And I think it was a year later that I decided I'm going to purchase my own camera, and I had family members.
10. So this was grade 10.
Between grade 10 and grade 11 in high school.
That's so cool that they were teaching that in school.
Awesome. I was like, oh, great. I can use. Because we were using the Adobe suite, and I was like, great, right. I can use Photoshop, I can use InDesign, I can write stuff and use cameras all at the same time. So it seemed like a really good.
That's so funny because when we were growing up, it was Commodore 64 in my school playing like Oregon Trail. I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about, but it was
not what we have today at all.
Yeah, so you had a good situation. Okay, keep going.
So I at the time I had like extended family members who were kind of like semi-pro, like they would shoot weddings. Or like all of my aunts would come to a family gathering with like cameras, and I was like, oh man, they've all got cameras. I need to get a camera. Interestingly, I think all of them shot Canon, which probably influenced me.
Ants, right?
Smart to shoot Canon. And then from there, I was just like, great, I can document things. Like I was very much let's document a home project. Let's go on vacation. Like I'm not thinking. I don't even think Instagram was out yet. No. Maybe it had just started, but this is the era of Blackberries, right?
Right.
Blackberries and Motorola flip phones. So yeah, I got my camera. I would document, like we'd go to New York City as a family, and I would film it, like do little clips. No intention to post it, just learning like, okay, this is how the lens works. This is how the shutter and all that works. And over time, that grew into interestingly, my dad was able to say, hey, I have some things I'd like you to shoot for the place he was working at, some interiors, real estate photography. Just like whatever. You have a camera, come shoot it. We'll put it on the company's website. And I was like, okay, great. Let's do that. And that was like my first paid photography job.
Wow.
And I, at the time, I guess I was getting ready, to get ready for university. I'm like, great, I'll save some money. I'll make some money for university. And then as I was doing it, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. And I was slowly like upgrading, like buying a tripod, buying better lenses, buying a better camera. And then it would turn into, I'd say by the time I got into university, so for reference, because that's a big time gap, I did not go to university for photography. This was just something I was doing for fun.
Yeah.
I went to university for architecture because I was interested in building. So maybe there's like a relationship there, like shooting, photographing buildings, and then going to school for buildings. But photography very quickly became a way for me to document my school project. So from documenting high school photojournalism to documenting like a project at home to now documenting buildings for school projects. And then, so, you know, I'll jump a lot forward because I went through the whole university thing, became a licensed architect. Now we're looking at 2021. So that's a big jump in time. And was it 2021? When did I start? So Instagram, obviously, throughout this whole time is like, everyone's on Instagram. I'm not posting anything serious at all.
Really?
I'm posting.
So even in 2021.
Maybe so a little bit before, let's go, maybe like 2019 is when I start to take Instagram a little bit more seriously, because I'd also started to use photography and was using it to go on like on more serious trips, I would say, like going hiking with friends, doing like longer like backpacking type things. And so that became a way for me to merge both photography and my interest in like being outdoors. I had never like put the two together. Like I was always interested, okay, let's go on hikes, let's have fun. And then photography is like documenting buildings over here. I had a good friend who I was hiking with. One day he just brought his like little Fujifilm. I don't even know what it was, but he brought his camera. And I was like, oh, I can take photos of other things that I like doing. And that very quickly became, those are the types of photos that I'm going to post on Instagram because I think this is interesting. So if you scroll back to probably like 2019, you'll see some like hiking outdoor, like not I'm hiking a mountain because I'm doing Ontario type stuff. It's just like forests and flat.
Some hills and forests,
Some hills. And then what happened? So I think, you know, you see, everyone sees Instagram like, oh my gosh, there's people with like 10,000 followers and a million, and you're like, wow, this is a thing that, like, there are a lot of serious photographers on here. So you start to post more. You're like, I'm going to post more frequently. Maybe I'll get more traction. Maybe I'll be able to get business out of it. So all this while I'm working in architecture full time. So I'm not, like, I've never worked professionally as like I went to school for photography. This is all just me learning on the side the whole time. I'd say, so if I go back to my YouTube, I want to say it was 2 years ago that I posted my first, I'm looking now for just because I'm curious when it was. I posted a video that was just like a hiking, like the most random thing ever. And the reason I did it was partly because Instagram was like, it was very hard to grow, I'd say, in like 2020. Like it was, Instagram is very saturated at this point. So I'm like, how can I differentiate? 2021, pretty much. 2020, 2021.
So recently.
So not that long ago. And I thought, okay, this is a way that I can differentiate and actually get my face out there. Because at the time, Instagram is just photos, right? No one's posting videos. And I'm like, this will give me a little bit of an advantage. And I started getting a lot of questions just from people I knew who were either like other people that were hiking or friends that I had or family members who were like, hey, I really like your photos. Can you show me, like, how did you edit that thing? Right? Like, how did you edit your photos? I was like, oh, well, I could show you, but I could also just make a YouTube video. And then everyone can see it. So I want to say it was, I'm checking one more time because I want to make sure. One of the first YouTube videos I posted was me literally just being like, okay, this is Lightroom and this is how I edit in Lightroom. 2021. So very recent.
So like you were really taking the information or the questions from the audience and going, this is what they want.
Exactly.
So why don't I just create resources based on that instead of being like, this is what I'm going to create and force things down people's throat. It's more like, this is the interest and I'm going to create a resource. And then you saw people bite for that's what they wanted. Yeah,
I was never the type of person to be like, oh wow, like I did something spectacular, like the awe-inspiring, like I'm not the awe-inspiring photographer. I've never really gone anywhere, I feel, and shot photos that are like super awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I can relate to the average person.
I see.
So that's the content. That's who I'm going to focus on. Just people who want to know
super relatable
these types of things. And I posted this Lightroom tutorial, like how to use the tone curves, whatever, you know? Because I felt like it was something that needed to be explained. And all of a sudden, like 3 months after posting it, it takes off.
Wow.
Like we're talking like 10,000 views in a day. I'm like,
whoa,
what the heck is this? And after a week, I think it got like 80 or like 60 or 80,000 views. I'm like, what the heck?
How many videos did you have up by that point?
Oh, I can tell you right now, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5.
That's it.
5 long form videos, and they were all very random. Like one was me going skiing, one was me just asking my friends about backpacks, and one is a random vlog. And then I made a Lightroom tutorial.
Wow. Because that's interesting, because I've heard you got to post so hard on YouTube before you see something kick off. So, but you experienced the opposite.
Well, it was 3 months from the date I posted it to the date that it took off.
Yeah.
So I think, there's definitely 2 halves to it, where it's like, you got to post a lot. But again, I approached the video from a technical, like I want to explain it like someone's trying to understand it a little bit more technically. And I think that's what differentiated it enough for people to be interested in it. And then that was kind of like, okay, Instagram is good for posting photos, but let's take it a step further. YouTube's looking good. Wasn't on TikTok at all at that point, because oh my gosh, pandemic
2020,
timeline.
I think TikTok was really 2020. It's still happening, obviously, but 2020 to like 2022, there's a real rise in TikTok because we were all at home. People were creating content in their living rooms, and really you start to see the app really take off.
Yeah, so I want to say it was late 2021.
Right.
So kind of around the time that this YouTube tutorial started getting popular, that I was like, maybe I can post photography TikToks, because there was a lot of like trend style photography, like similar to what you're seeing on Instagram now with like raw versus edited happening on TikTok. And I was like, I can do that. Like I feel I might not be the best like travel photographer or lifestyle photographer, but I feel like I understand editing. So I did these like raw versus edits that were like, wow, that's like very different because it's so heavily edited. And I think that's what got me a little bit of traction in the beginning, because not many people were doing it. And then, you start to see the trends. You're like, okay, I can do these trends. And then over a while, you're like, well, if I'm just talking and making videos on YouTube, why don't I just do the same thing on TikTok? Because trends, it's hard to chase a trend. Like you're very dependent on someone seeing it at the right time and it going kind of like viral, versus my strategy was like, I'm going to start every short form piece of content with just me being in it. So like, I'm not even thinking personal branding at this point, but it's something that I realize now was like, okay, I was very clearly defining this pattern of content for myself that worked out really well in the long run. So that's kind of how TikTok, and now it is what it is. It's like 200,000 on TikTok, 200,000 on YouTube. But I feel like I've tried to follow that same format of content.
And I think you hit on something so interesting, because you were like, I'm not the best travel photographer. I don't have the most crazy photos, but yet you have great trajectory and growth. And I think one thing that I'm hearing from you is you found your strength, and you found that way to communicate those your wisdom and your ideas and the information that you have to resource people, and you took that feedback base, what people want to learn, and you put that out there, and that was your growth trajectory. And I think sometimes people think, I can't grow on Instagram, I can't grow on social because I'm not good at this, or I don't live in the most epic place. But I think what you're saying, and I want creators to hear this, is they played to their strengths, and that was what resonated with the audience.
Yeah, and you'll see tons of different styles of content on the internet, and I would always encourage people, don't feel like you have to copy someone else. Take inspiration from them. Maybe take inspiration from like your 3 favorite people, and then look at yourself and be like, what is my competitive advantage? Like, hey, if you live in Alaska or like in Iceland or something, that's your competitive advantage. You have a really cool location. If you live in Toronto, it's like, it's flat here. There's Lake Ontario. There's, if I drive 5 hours, maybe I can find something that looks good. But my competitive advantage is that I can always be in this location. I have a ton of knowledge I can share. Anytime I'm learning something new, that's what I'm going to put out.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip for people, especially now with social. Like Instagram started out as, a photo app. People were posting photos, but it's more than a photo app now. Obviously, it's a experiential, entertainment, informational app. And so people find the things that they love. Like if you're a blogger, if you're a chef, if you're a there's obviously fit influencers. Like there's a whole world out there now where people are just playing to their strengths and sharing their passions, and everyone's got a commonality somewhere. And so I feel like if people just play to that, that's going to bring them some great growth. So you've definitely seen it. You've had it wild. It's amazing to me that you really only started a couple of years ago, because you've had some great growth.
Yeah, I mean, again, Instagram has just been on the back burner. Like everyone has Instagram, everyone's got Facebook. You just have it. TikTok, basically mid pandemic, maybe mid the first year of the pandemic, and YouTube. Like I didn't start this going like I want to be a full-time YouTuber. I thought this is fun. Like so side story here. I actually thought when I first started YouTube that I would be making like hiking, outdoor, like adventure content, that I could, go on hikes with my friends, tell a story, capture some, like there are a ton of awesome YouTube channels. Like I think like Aiden Robbins is a good one. Or if you're like super into like outdoor stuff, like a Dan Becker type channel. And I thought that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But then I quickly realized that, like I can't go on a hike every weekend. Like I can't fly to BC every weekend. I can't drive 5 hours north every weekend. But that's a medium through which I can explore photography. So if I ever do go on a hike, it like fits naturally with my brand. Mm-hmm. But the core of what I'm talking about is photography and content creation tips.
But you did something like you set up. We were talking to Tom Nosky about this too, because he was saying for him, his real pivot was, when the pandemic happened, because he was doing travel and stuff, is like, I got to create a way for me to share my content where he was empowered to do it on the daily, that didn't rely on the scenery, or it was like, so he set up his scene in his house and started doing the whole desk, and you know what I mean? And all the tips and tricks with that. And I think you've done something similar where you're like, I'm going to set up at my house. I set up a cool scene, and I can just come into my room, turn my gear on, and just record something. So talk to us a bit about your process of how you came to that design of the room. What are you using? Like, how can creators, because they might look and go, oh, Anthony's set is so cool, or I don't have that. Like, what are some things that people can be doing in there to empower themselves to make great content from their home?
I mean, it's definitely evolved. So the base, the easy answer is that I leave my camera set up on my tripod, and I'm fortunate that I have more than one camera. So I don't like that is the TikTok YouTube camera over there on the tripod. Right. That just eliminates the headache of being like, okay, I have to set it up. When you're in the mode of I need to record something every day, if it's going to take you 30 minutes to set it up, that's 30 minutes of you procrastinating, essentially. Totally. So one, leave that set up. And I've kind of like this view that you're seeing, which, this is like my IKEA, whatever the heck it is. It's like a piece of IKEA furniture. Like I don't touch it, right? Like if I know that's my recording setup, any junk that comes into my room has to be on the other side. Right. Again, I don't want to have to go and be like, oh, I got to move 100 things. That just makes it way easier. Right. I'm trying to think what else.
So removing the obstacles, removing that whole, I like that procrastination thing, is like you can just come in, turn the lights on, turn everything on, and just start recording.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That'll make it so much easier.
Yeah, and for lighting, like what are you doing with lighting? Like how did you make it go? Like talk about that. What did you add to just create some more environmental experiences?
So I have, I mean, we talk about key light, edge light, and then practicals as like the three big types of light. My key light has always just been like a big softbox. I'm actually using it right now. So it's like set up off to the left. Sometimes I'm testing different gear. So what I say in one video might be different. Right now I'm testing this like 2 foot, like this really small softbox with like a 60-watt cob light on it. It's literally on a C-stand because that's just easier. But whatever, whether you have it sitting on a desk and it's pointing towards you and it's the brightest light source. Now, if we're talking about, you know, what's in the background, this, interestingly, right here, this bulb is just an IKEA light bulb. And I got it because I'm like, oh, it looks cool. Yeah. It's kind of warm. It kind of accents the background. Yeah. And that's, I don't know, I've had that light bulb for 2 years now.
It's a great bulb.
It just sits there and it looks great. And you got yours there too in the background, the fairy lights or whatever. Yeah. And then sometimes I'll add in, so I've got like tube lights. So right now I've actually got, you can kind of see there's a little bit of like a blue edge on me. And that's off to the side. And that's creating a little bit of color in the background, which I guess you could say it aligns with my branding. Sometimes I'll turn it off if it's like a more moody scene and I'm being intimate. But if we're like upbeat and energetic, it's like, no, blue light comes on. And then sometimes I'll add an additional, like an edge light. I have it off right now, but it's basically on the opposite side of my key light. And it just helps separate you a little bit. Like, you know, Scott right now, you can see he's got a little bit of something from the window hitting his hair. He's got a little bit of an edge light. I have nothing. There's no edge light right now. But if I did, that would be set up behind me. And that would help separate me from the background.
Nice. And then what about mics? What kind of audio are you using?
Ooh. There are so many good options.
So many. Yeah.
So right now I'm recording with the Rode NTG. It's like a $250-ish mic. You can plug it in through 1/8-inch audio jacks. You can plug it in through USB-C. I'm actually recording with the USB-C right now. Lately, I've decided to become a little bit more bougie, and I got like a full-on like boom shotgun.
Nice.
It's like a Rode NTG 3.
Wow.
So it's like Canadian wise, I think we're talking like $900. So it's
It's an investment.
Not cheap, but it's an investment because I recognize there are, so again, like I do get the occasional, so not YouTube job that requires me to have that slightly higher end equipment. Right. And so I'm fortunate and then I could double dip where it's equipment that I can use to film content, but it's also content, gear that I can use to help film content for other people.
Right. And so for audio, do you keep that set up as well, or is there a lot of mobility with that?
So I do keep it set up. It's attached to the tripod itself. It if I'm using the Rode, the NTG video mic, that just goes in. You can either keep it set up onto the hot shoe because that's how it's designed to work with your camera. I've got it set up on a little bit of like a friction boom arm, so it gets a little bit closer. You know, the closer the audio gets to you, the less noise you'll get, and the audio will just sound cleaner. But it does stay set up attached to that rig.
Right, and then having this set up in your house is just. Do you feel like having that set up, now that you have it, you're just like every day? Are you just like creating a piece of content, 2 pieces? Like, what's your day look like? Are you scheduling it out? Are you like saying, I don't work on these days? Are you just like every day pumping out content?
So recently it's been the last month I've had 1 day a week where I'll batch record like 4, 5, or 6 pieces of content.
Yep.
However, due to the nature of short form content, you never know when a video is just going to like hit.
Right.
So like I pre-recorded, like I was reviewing an accessory for my MacBook, and the video like overnight got 200,000. I think it's at like 500,000 views or something ridiculous like that. But the thing is, a lot of people ask questions like, oh, does this do this? And you're like, okay, I should stop and record something right now to post tomorrow.
I see.
So sometimes in the moment, it's situational. I will record like that day and post either an extra video or like shift shift my schedule a little bit.
Right.
But right now I have, interestingly, probably like 20 unedited pieces of content that are just sitting there, and I'm like, I got it, because it takes time. Editing is the hardest part. I can sit down and record a short form piece of content in like 5 minutes now, just because of how streamlined it is. Right. But then you put it in a folder and you're like, I need an hour to edit it. Right. It's like,
that's right.
So,
and you don't add music, right, to your short form?
I do.
You do.
I'd say about 90% of the time I do.
Yeah.
And it's not the trends. I don't use the trends audio because part of me is like, I might reuse this content elsewhere. And if I don't have to worry about licensing music, then it just makes it easier. So I'll use like, I've used pretty much every of the royalty-free music services. Just literally grab one that is like a sound that aligns with my personal brand. Yeah. Throw it on, like, okay, this is like a moody, chill, like hip-hop, lo-fi. Good. It works.
Yeah. Nice. And then for now, that's great that you have your home set up, so anybody watching is like, oh, that's great. What about going out? You know, now you're going to vlog or do something on the outside, going hiking, going on a trip. What kind of gear are you taking with you for those kind of trips or that kind of content?
I've got my bag right here.
Oh, nice. Let's see the bag.
I don't know. I don't think everything's in it, but this is like my hiking. Okay. This is not sponsored. This is a Shimoda bag. Okay. And I will... So it's a hiking / camera bag, which is why I like it, because it fits with that. I will throw usually a camera. So like my R5 usually comes with me. A microphone. So I have a few different shotgun mics. I'll also take the NTG video mic with me, just because it has like the wind sock on it, and it just has, out of all the ones I have, I think it has the best battery life, so it helps to take it with you. Tripod, I usually will bring some form of a tripod. I have like some really small carbon fiber ones, so if I want to set it up and do like a full like standing in the middle of the forest, I can do that. I don't know, I feel like my camera bag is pretty typical. Batteries, sometimes a power bank. I don't bring any lights with me, because if I'm shooting outside, you don't need it. ND filter. ND filter is the big one, though, just so that you can set your frame rates and it's not overexposed. What
about you're not taking stabilizer? Are you all handheld?
No stabilizers. So no gimbals. If I want to do, let's say, a slow-mo shot, I'll literally just throw it into like 4K 60, and my default is like, grab it and just do a little slow parallax movement. And usually it's with the image stabilization.
Totally.
It's on these Canon cameras.
Yes.
It's good. I don't need a stabilizer.
That's good. It's just an extra step, right? Putting the camera on. It's like you got to balance it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're taking with you. And then, are you still doing tons of are you doing travel media? Like what do you see? Like what excites you? Like, I know you're doing the whole, you're giving tips and tricks and all those things, but what's like your dream bucket? Like, what do you like? I want to create this piece of content or do this thing.
Honestly, like, I think the content I enjoy doing the most right now is if I'm going somewhere and I know there's going to be a fun photo opportunity. Right. Then kind of pre-planning and going, how can I create a teachable moment out of this? So it might be a vlog. Like, it might be a vlog style, like, hey guys, I'm here with my friends, whatever. By the way, we're going to try and shoot some photos. So there's always this like A and B narrative, where it's like the A narrative might be, I don't know, I haven't planned Las Vegas yet, but we're here in Las Vegas. By the way, we're going to go out into the desert and try and shoot some photos. Here are some tips if you're shooting photos in the desert. Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be a little bit more sophisticated than that. But I'm sure, like, in that type of case, we'll come up with something. But I really like doing that. Like, if you go back to some of the YouTube videos I posted maybe like a month ago, like, we went and we're just out in the middle of the winter at this cabin, and like, no, we didn't really have too much of a plan, other than I was there with like 2 of my photographer friends, and we're like, what are some opportunities that we can shoot here? Like, how can we use the snow? How can we use the forest? How can we use the gear that we have? So those like limiting elements which then inspire your creativity to be like, okay, we're going to try using, changing up the depth of field or using foreground elements or creating contrast. And then you just, as you're working through it as a creative, you're like, oh, this is how I can teach someone else to also work through it.
Right. And so for what I'm hearing is like everything that you're doing, whether it's in your house or traveling, is all about educating and empowering others.
Yeah.
Let's talk about for people that are approaching social, that want to grow. Talk about those value adds. Like, what are people looking for online, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube? What are people looking online that brings value to them, that makes them follow you?
So I think one way that you can approach it is like, is this a piece of content that someone would either bookmark and save for later or send to a friend? So when I'm creating my content, I'm always like, okay, is this a tip that they're going to save so that the next time they're out, they're going to want to use? Or it could be anything. So if you're doing travel photography, maybe you provide some information about the destination, even if it's just in your caption, like, oh, I went to this place and blah, 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 blah. Great. Someone's now going to save that. So whether, like, obviously what the listener, the viewer, you guys at home, whatever your thing is going to be unique to you. For me, it's, what is the photography takeaway? What is the lens tip? What is the lighting tip? What is the thing that is going to make someone want to bookmark this?
Mm-hmm. Right. And so basically, and that can apply to any field for people who are doing recipes, for people, people are going to bookmark that because they want to remember. I've bookmarked so many recipes and I've never made a single one. I'm like, I could make that.
I've bookmarked so many like travel destinations that I'm like, oh, if I ever go to Iceland, here's like my itinerary. I'm like, save that for later.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like a year ago. It's like, it was so long ago. But now I think Instagram, they've got that collection. So now you can do like travel tips or whatever. I don't know.
That's what I've done. I have a collection that's called Photography Inspiration.
Nice.
So I can just like go through and find those.
Because it is easy to forget. But so basically, whatever your niche is, whatever your focus is, creating content that's bringing value add to that community. Like education, information. Where are you getting your information? Like, obviously you're very smart around all of these technologies and devices and gear. How are you educating yourself?
Well, I just asked ChatGPT everything.
Right?
It's insane, actually. Honestly, it's just part of my habit is like checking what latest gear is out. Like, what's on Petapixel that I'm interested in, what's on Canon rumors that like is interesting. And like there are a ton of other, like, even just YouTube channels that are just photography news. And sometimes it's just, okay, seeing what they're saying. Okay, what's some new camera tech that's coming out? For photography tips, I feel like I'm not necessarily doing research for them unless it's a type of photography that I'm not familiar with. Like recently I did some like astrophotography, which I am not an expert on. It is so challenging with like star trackers and I'm like, I don't know, I just point my camera and shoot. So in that case, I actually did some research about like what is a good, exposure time, and then I'll test it, and then I'll validate it, and then I'll share it. So I'm not just going and grabbing a random tip like, here's what you need to know. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna create a photo. I'm gonna show you the photo, and that's kind of like the proof of like this article or this whatever ChatGPT told me, I tried it and it actually worked.
Right. Proof is in the pudding. You're validating it because you want to build trust too. Like where people like Anthony knows what he's talking about. He does it and here's the proof. He showed me how it's done. I think that's super important. You're not just like, you're the real deal. You're doing this. Who are some of your inspirations right now on YouTube? Like, who are you loving?
Who do I watch regularly is the question. I think I mentioned earlier, Aidan Robbins is a good one. He does like these cinematic, kind of like what I wanted to do initially, where it's like I go out and I go on a hike and I photograph it and I film it and I edit, and there's like a thing that comes out of it. I'm trying to think who else is in my realm. I try not to watch too many similar content creators, just because then you can be like, oh, I have to make the same
Right.
video as them.
Right.
Oh my gosh, if I go to YouTube right now, what is it going to feed me? That's the scary thing.
Yeah, so you're just following a bunch of people you watch. Do you just watch at leisure, or are you watching as soon as they get a notification?
I will usually, I'm a subscription, like a notification squad. Like notification popped up, Matty Hapoya has a new video on like whatever Sony G-Master. Like I don't even shoot Sony, but I'm watching the video anyways, just
of course,
because if someone asks me, because if someone asks me and they're like, "What do you think of the Sony G-Master?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know, never heard of it. So at least if I can go and I can watch it, then I can be like, based on what I've seen, it looks like a solid lens.
Right.
So
and how important is it to be like first to market with information, like when a new camera launches or a device, like when an iPhone drops? Talk about that.
I think so. There's two realms of like creating content. There's a product is released, and usually the ones who are showing it on launch day are the ones who are being sponsored because they got sent the product or they're being paid to talk about it. That's great if you're trying to make revenue off of like Amazon sales, then great. You're the first one who showed it and a bunch of people bought it from your links. Mm-hmm. I think if you're trying to provide like a helpful technical breakdown of like, is this thing actually good? I don't think it matters when you post it. I think you can post it 3 months later. Like one of the channels that I think of is DSLR video shooter. I think his name is Caleb. He's got like the yellow thumbnails and he's always reviewing like everything, like every lens, every whatever. But or like Gerald Undone, for example, who is a Toronto area creator. Like his reviews will come out, maybe a couple weeks later or a month later, and or he'll tell you if it is the day of the launch, like this video is no one is paying me to make it. I'm making it and I'm providing you an objective opinion. So there's the two hats. There's it's launch day and you're going to get all that traffic, but then there's also like we're doing a technical breakdown so that you as a photographer, videographer know whether this is going to meet your needs and we're going to show you test results. So I think you can do both. I don't think it matters. Unless you're like, oh, Sony ZV-E whatever came out and everyone wants to know about it, then yeah, maybe you need to post that within like the first couple of days.
Right. So in those instances, first to market is very important. But
yeah, it can be.
But then there's evergreen. That's super
absolutely,
valuable.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think evergreen content is actually, I don't want to say better in the long run, because it is kind of better in the long run, but you'll have those types of videos will obviously have more longevity. So if you don't know what evergreen content is, it's a piece of information that will always, or let's say for the next 5 years, be relevant because it's not changing. So in-depth camera reviews, in-depth photography tutorials, or whatever your niche is, just talking about information that's always going to be relevant.
Right, like some good how-tos. Yeah, definitely. When it comes to social media, like obviously there's a whole landscape out there right now. You got YouTube Shorts now, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know if, I think those are your majors. What do you think? Because TikTok's changed a bit with their algorithm. What do you think as a creator, where should people be putting most of their energies? What do you see as going on for future trends in the near future?
I'll say that I do think YouTube is like a good overall investment. Just because if you want to do long form videos and you want to do short form videos, it's connected. And I think now even YouTube is going to start letting you have like podcasts on YouTube, like a dedicated podcast
cool.
tab.
Yeah.
So it's got super short, medium length, and then like super long.
Right.
I do think YouTube is great. I think it has the largest barrier to entry because like what you were saying earlier, where it's like you have to build up the momentum of posting really before anyone sees it. Whereas with TikTok, there's like this anything could go viral at any point. And that will definitely benefit some niches of creators. Like if you're, I like to use the analogy of like a small business and you have like a product to sell, like you might actually get way more traction on TikTok because like, boom, it's out there and people will instantly know whether they want to see it.
Faster, quicker to market, yeah.
Exactly. Versus, YouTube Shorts might take a little bit longer or even doing like a regular YouTube video will take a lot longer. And then I feel like Instagram is somewhere in between. Like if if your audience, like my audience on Instagram, like I definitely have a higher percentage of Toronto people, like Canadian people on my Instagram versus TikTok seems to be a little bit more international. And I don't know if that's like across the board, but for example, you might like Instagram is still top of mind for a lot of businesses. Like I can think of if you're a landscape business or you're a mom and pop shop or you're like everyone's always got that Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, where am I want to hire this person to do a job, or I want to see what they're baking in their shop. I'm going to go to Instagram.
Right.
And so there's like, I still think that's relevant at some sort of level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Instagram's having a bit of a resurgence, I feel. Like, I mean, I know that there has been the windows of Instagram is dead, you know. It seems like they're pushing photos a little bit more now. Again, you've got the reels, but I do feel like they're coming on the little bit, like it's like the phone book. It's just like, it's not necessarily cool, but it's not cool. It's like everybody's got Instagram. It's like, what's your Insta? Like everybody has it. Not everybody has TikTok. And when I meet somebody, you don't go, what's your TikTok? You usually just go, what's your Instagram? You know, it's kind of like your business card.
It's still a little bit cringe, the TikTok, when it's like, oh,
it is.
Like, what do you do? I'm a TikTok creator. Oh, okay.
It definitely has a you know,
connotation to it. Yeah.
100%, because it's mainstream now, but it started out very underground. It's like when I first went on TikTok, I'm like, what universe did I just enter? You know, because
what is this For You page?
What is this for? Yeah, that was the thing. And why is every video using the same song? And why are they all doing the same thing?
Same
like,
dance.
What am I missing out on that I'm not connecting with? And then when I realized it's trends and it's people participating in the same audio, which was so different from Instagram, because Instagram was all about people creating something. Yeah, there were similarities, but I mean, it wasn't like trendy music or, you know, the same dance or like these funny, like, you know, trends or whatever. But at TikTok, at first it was so Gen Zers, you know what I mean? With this crazy hair. And I'm like, where did I just enter? And then as I started getting into it and understood it, and then obviously curating more what I was interested in, the For You page identified the content that was making me laugh or the information I was looking for. Then I started to know how to contribute on the app and go, oh, okay, I get it. Now I feel like more moms and dads and younger people are on it, not so Gen Zer.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like it's a little bit more of a, not so Wild West, but at first it was like, man, I feel like I've entered the Twilight Zone.
Yep, for sure.
So yeah, it's good. And I'm still active on it. I do question the longevity of it just because of all of the current social, political tension around it. So it makes me feel a little bit like hesitant.
Yeah. And I've heard people on both sides of the story. Like people are adamant that it's going to get removed, that something's going to happen. And then I've heard on the opposite side where people are like, no, it won't get removed. Like it's going to be there. But it's who knows? And this is why I always tell people invest in multiple platforms. If you're making TikToks, who cares? Post them on YouTube. Post them on Reels. Just do it.
Totally. I agree with that. And I think multi-platform is great. I do agree with you though. I'm not very active on YouTube. I've had a few videos and I recently started posting on shorts because long form is a dedicated content form. And I mean, I'd love to do it, but it does take a lot of, you know, so hats off to all the YouTubers out there. It's a huge thought process.
It is.
And execution and well-deserved when people get followings for sure. But I do think YouTube is probably, of all platforms, one of the best, just because the longevity, the loyalty from the audience, people build connections with their audience to the person. And so I feel like YouTube is definitely one of those platforms that's going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
It's safe to do it. It's worth the investment for sure. I think Instagram's a great second, but YouTube for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And do you feel for YouTube, like obviously you were really inspired by like super cinematic. How organic or raw can you be in short or long form content on YouTube?
How organic and raw can you be?
Like how unpolished can you be?
Oh. So I think that's a line that I try to navigate a little bit.
Right.
Because there's always this like, oh my gosh, it's a 10-minute video. I need to script it out. I need to have because I've definitely done the video where teleprompter and I've read the whole thing. Yeah. I find that there is a benefit to it where it's like you won't miss anything. You'll get all of your points in and it'll be exactly like you wrote it. But then there is like the lack of like, oh, well, if I messed up or if I wanted to do something funny, it doesn't really flow with the script. And I've done so the total opposite, where I had no plan. Like I think I filmed a video once of me changing like my memory card reader or something. I was like, I got a new memory card reader, and I just like Casey Neistat it or something, where it was just whatever. I was pulling parts out and putting parts in. Yeah. And that video actually did okay. Like, it's not like it got 1 million views, but it got maybe a couple, 10,000 views or 20,000 views. Great. And it's like, okay, that's a video that I feel like I can relate more to my audience. Right. Yeah. And I do see those comments come in where if a funny moment happened, like I said something funny or I made a mistake, where I leave it in, and then you'll see like, oh man, I really appreciate, seeing you just in your like, interacting with other people in a natural way, because sometimes it's just like so dialed in and so static that it won't build a relationship with your audience, I think, as much as those raw, unedited moments. Do you think
people could take like their iPhone and do the whole vlog on their iPhone and just post that? Like, would that perform?
You could. I think you can, and it all depends what you're trying to make a video on. Because if you're going to film it on your iPhone, but you're telling people like you're providing them with a ton of value, they're not going to care. Like they're going to say, "Oh, I don't care what it was filmed on." Right. But on the other side of the spectrum, if you're trying to do a camera review and you're shooting it on an iPhone, it's like, okay, maybe you should have shot it on a camera because that's what people came for, right?
Right. So, but there is people that follow people on YouTube for highly experiences or humor or fun that are all shot on iPhone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there can be people out there, because there might be people out there watching or listening going, I'm not a techie. Like, Anthony's so good, because you are so good. Like, you have so much incredible information. And there might be people that I want to YouTube, but I don't know how to work a camera, but I have an iPhone, or So
use the iPhone.
Use the iPhone. You think any tips for using the iPhone if the people are vlogging audio or things like that?
Absolutely. So I don't have an iPhone. I have a Google phone, but same idea. Set it up
Anthony.
on a. Sorry, I have a MacBook.
You're one of the green texters?
I'm sorry. Google has had its hold on me for forever. My argument is I don't need to invest in a lot of my phones because I invested in my cameras. My cameras are all the creative.
I'll let this one slide. Okay. I'm letting it slide.
All right. All the Apple users are typing away right now. I can't believe he doesn't have an iPhone. Yeah. It's fine. So take your phone, whatever, it's Apple, whatever, set it up on a tripod or set it up somewhere solid. I would definitely get a microphone. You don't have to get a $1,000 microphone. You could get, a one under $100 microphone, or just like a lav mic. Like, there's tons of wireless options. Like Rode makes some, DJI makes some. Mm-hmm. Just find one that fits your budget, and I guarantee you, as long as it's not like it's more than $10. If you buy something that's like $5, $10, you might not get the best audio quality. Right. But if you're like, okay, maybe like $50, $100, plug it in. Yep. Great. You're good to go. Then go sit in front of a window, open the blinds so you get lots of nice light hitting your face. And then you're pretty much good for making content that isn't terrible. It'll be good. Right. The lighting will be good. The audio will be good. Right. It's not going to be, a cinematic movie, but people won't care as long as they can hear you and you look somewhat decent.
Right. And you can supplement. So say you shoot some stuff maybe in studio with your camera, and then maybe some stuff off-site with your phone. So and are people forgiving with a bit of shakiness, bit of vloggy vibes when you're walking?
I mean, people complain about the camera wobbles on the R5 all the time. But look, it just means an extra comment that is engagement, that boosts it in the algorithm. Like, that's why I don't care. When people say, oh, your camera angle was too wide, it made me sick, or it was too shaky, it's like, okay, I understand. Next time I'll try to be a little bit less shaky.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good thing, actually, that when people respond, even if it's not positive, I know at first for me, when people responded something negative, it kind of frustrated me. Yeah. Because it highlighted it in perfection. But now I'm just like, oh, well, I don't let those comments bother me. Do you feel it's good when people comment the good, the bad, the ugly, and how are you dealing with that?
There's different levels of good and bad, because what one person thinks is bad, another person might go, oh, like for me, if as long as someone isn't saying anything hateful and like I want to delete all of your content or anything like that, then that's a little bit, we need to calm down. But if people are saying, I didn't like this video because it was too shaky, that's, as much as it sounds negative, it is actually a positive feedback, because then you'll learn that the next time we need to make it better. Like I think I put out a video once and the color grading was like a little bit too yellow, and so someone commented, why does this video look more yellow than normal? And then you watch it back and you're like, oh yeah, I should have fixed that. So I think that's okay. Positive comments are great. Actually, the problem with positive comments, when people say, like, I love all your videos, it's like, okay, well, which ones specifically did you like, so that I can tailor them and, you know, maybe make them a little bit better in some way. Because if everyone is always saying, I love all your photos, I love all your videos, it's like, then you're not growing as you know, so.
It's not helpful. It's nice, but I agree with you, because I like what you're saying about taking the negative, what appears to be negative comments, and looking at it. You're right, because if someone's like, I hate this video, it's like, that's a little cutting. But if someone's like, why is this a little bit more yellow, then you're like, okay, I don't need to beat myself up for not making it perfect, but just go, oh, you know, actually that's good feedback. I learned from that. So not all negative comments are, as long, like you said, as long as it's not hurtful. Because I think that's one thing that creators, when you put a piece of work out there, you look at it through your eyes and then you post it, and someone is looking at it through their eyes and they give you some of that feedback. And sometimes you're like, can take it on as like you're a failure, you know, like, oh shoot, I missed the mark or whatever. But I like what you're saying about, you just take it on, develop it, and get better from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you'll get, if you show a video or a photo to your friends, and all they say is, I loved it, it was great. They're your friends, you know, they're your family. They're gonna love everything you do. It's like the real opinions are those borderline ones that, okay, I see how I can improve.
Do you respond to all the comments on like YouTube?
So usually within the first like hour of, if it's a long form video, I will try to. Sometimes I'll just sit down, 30 minutes at a time, 40 minutes, and just see what people are commenting. Because sometimes people have questions, and those are the ones that I'll want to respond to. Right.
And so you could be engaging for quite a while sometimes in the thread.
Unfortunately, it can be a big time sink. And so I try to limit myself. One of the biggest fears I have is that, and this is something I think a lot of content creators struggle with, when you're just starting out and you have like 1,000 followers, you can very easily engage with all the comments, like all 5, 6, 10 people that are responding. The problem is, as you start to grow, that time creep becomes exponential, and you're like, man, now I have 500,000 followers or 1 million followers or whatever, and you can't do it. It's a full-time job. Unless you hire someone, there's just no way. And so my fear has always been that I don't want to become inauthentic, because I started down here where I'm able to be one-on-one, able to be authentic with these people. Let's say in a year from now, I simply have zero time to respond to comments. What I don't want is someone being like, man, that Anthony guy, he used to respond to all my comments, but now he's too famous, or he's too popular, or he's too, and it's like, it's not that. It's that I can make, 3 more videos this week, or I can respond to comments. So which one do you want? I can only do one. Right.
Exactly. And you can use a video to respond to the comment and tailor it to that person. Because truth be told, if someone's got a question, other people probably have the same question.
So here's a good tip for that. Because you're saying responding to videos with more videos. Yeah. What you can do now on YouTube that not many people realize is, if you have a long form video, and you have comments under it that are like, maybe you missed something, like, oh, what about the fan noise on that light? Or does that light go brighter than this light? You can actually respond with a YouTube short, and that will be linked. Yes, which I love. Wow. So I've done that a few times now, where I've put out a product review and someone had a follow-up question, and I'm like, I could type it out, but I could spend 30 seconds and go, let's compare the fan noise on these two fans. And I put a microphone, measure the decibels, measure the other one. There you go. There's your answer.
Who sees that reply? Is it everyone get notified?
Everyone. So it's well, I don't know about notifications. I assume if they have notifications turned on.
Right.
But it will like on the mobile app it works really well.
Right.
Where if you're watching the long form video on mobile and you go down to the comments, you can then click on the short and it will take you to the short. On desktop,
that's a good feature.
I don't know if that works on desktop. I haven't tested that yet. But awesome. And this is why I love YouTube, because they can do things like that other platforms can't.
Right. That's such a good feature. And I agree with you. Like it's good to engage with comments, but sometimes I think just giving it a heart or something, it lets people know I see you, and that's good. But to engage in the further conversation, to do another video to answer that question, I think just keeps the fire going, the snowball effect going. And so I think that's super, super smart. And then as we wrap up here, this has been such a good conversation. So anybody listening and watching, first of all, go follow Anthony. You can tell, obviously, worth all of your follows. But what would you say, like, just leaving creator, what are some creator tips that you could just encourage people that are maybe shy or nervous to start, or just getting started, that maybe feel they're in a frustrated grind right now and they're not seeing that growth? What are some just words of wisdom that you could leave with people to help move them forward?
Enjoy the moments where you don't have growth, because as long as you're putting in that time, understanding that eventually it will lead to something and you're committed to it, I think, it might not be in a month from now, it might not be in 6 months from now, it might be in a year or 2 years or 3 years from now. And as long as you're committed to it, I haven't seen anyone who is committed to it not succeed in some way. So I would say stay committed to it. Don't be distracted by the low views. Don't be distracted by the inevitable hate comments, because you'll get a video that will get 10,000, 100,000 views, and you will get those comments, but you can always spin that to be positive.
Right. That is awesome. That's a great piece of advice. And you know what? You have been someone that we've enjoyed watching the journey. You came to Socality events early on. You've been there, and you've just had this great growth trajectory, but you're an awesome guy. I love that you are always empowering people, investing all your content to help creators grow and go forward. And so I would thank you for donating an hour of your time to spend with us today on the Socality Show. And guys, everyone go follow Anthony. We'll put all his links in our in the podcast. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to like and subscribe and follow along as we host more creators and bring this information in to you. So thanks a lot, Anthony. Thanks everybody for watching. Everybody have a great day.